special. And so I just wanted to introduce Kayla. She is a graduate and she's going to give us her testimony along with her husband's testimony. And so yeah, I just wanted to welcome her and just thank her so much for coming.
Thank you. Hello. Just thank you for inviting us to share our thoughts and experiences. Yes, this is my husband, Seamus. He graduated the program in 2012. My name is Kaylee, and I graduated in 2013. I will preface with the sad reality that many, if not all people, are addicted to something. Alcohol and substance abuse are probably the most destructive addictions and generally end in premature death. The virus, lockdowns, and loss of loved ones, plans, income, and dreams for many has caused a rise of addictions, overdoses, and suicides. The looming hopelessness globally is undeniable. Even prior to the onset of this pandemic, we know that mental health and addiction issues were increasing everywhere. Through personal experience, both of us recognize the lack of available help, options of support, and recovery programs, especially in our Cariboo region. Adult and Teen Challenge offers hope to a much-needed crisis that surrounds us. We strongly believe in this program and would recommend it to anybody truly searching for hope, change, a fresh start to a new life. My husband said it well the other day. We are walking miracles. Who would have thought an ex-gang member and an ex-prostitute could accept help, get married on a whim, have 2 children, become entrepreneurs, become contributing citizens, examples of hope, thriving in a brutal world, fulfilled and determined to give back and help others. So a little about us. I am an only child raised by my mother from a small town in the Fraser Valley. I heard about TC many times. Sorry, I'll refer to Teen Challenge as TC. As students shared testimonies at the church I grew up in. I never imagined I would go to the program myself. I was an academic, well-mannered, shy young woman who ended up falling into the wrong crowd in my mid-teen years. My mother was amazing. She held 3 careers and was well-respected. My trauma began when my dad rejected me at birth, then threatened our safety consistently. We ended up moving away because of this, and I have never known him. As a child, my mother injured her back at work and fought depression for many years. I think this is when my views of the world changed significantly. Soon after my introduction to drugs and promiscuity through these misdirected friends, I experienced bullying and harassment in school and online for several years. My mother was genuinely concerned for my situation, but did not know how to help and began dictating in many ways. Depression reared its ugly head, and I began to self-medicate by searching for love in all the wrong places and using alcohol, cannabis, and sometimes other drugs. Suicidal thoughts became a regular thing for me. I quickly became an incredibly angry person and hardly attended school. Things with my mom escalated, and I lived with several other families, but continued to cause problems and began to believe I was simply a problem, unworthy of love and destitute. My mother, police, MCFD, teachers, and counselors tried to help, but the constant harassment and threats of my peers continued, as well as my poor choices in response. Eventually, I found an opportunity to leave town, essentially running away, after being basically expelled from school. I had met a young man online who pretended to be a friend and offered me a place to stay in another city. I took a Greyhound with a few dollars to my name and decided I would never look back. Arriving in that unknown city, I felt lost and scared, but tried to put on a brave face. I'll spare you some details, but shortly after this horrible night, I was trafficked by people described as Romeo pimps and forced to work on the street, in a brothel, strip club, and online. I was 17. I can only describe my escape from this atrocious situation as being rescued by the hand of God. I don't know if everybody here believes in a higher power, so I will leave it at that. What I will say is over the course of the next 5 years, my healing journey began as my faith grew. I finished high school, I modeled for a while, I earned a legal assistant certificate, and worked at a law firm in Vancouver. However, I continued to struggle with deep trauma, severe mental illnesses, and addiction issues. In 2012, I heard God tell me to apply to the TC program, and I am so thankful I listened. Seamus grew up in the Okanagan with a large and model family. He was a skilled hockey player and loved life, but things drastically changed for him during his teen years. Abuse started at a young age and continued into his high school years. He was also bullied and quickly turned into a bully to survive. He rebelled and became violent and unpredictable. He used alcohol to help him forget the disturbing realities of his life and gain confidence. He quickly gained a significant reputation of being someone not to be messed with. School was obviously a struggle for him. After being expelled from 2 schools, he eventually dropped out and began working instead. Depression and anxiety hit him hard, along with a lack of self-worth and confidence to achieve his dreams of education and establishing a good career. Rage and alcoholism seemed to destroy many relationships and eroded his dreams of having a family of his own. Eventually, he found himself ready to end his life. He was seconds away from carrying out his plan to drive off a cliff when God spoke to him. A friend told him about the TC program, and he was admitted quickly. We met in this program, but with the rules of the program, interacting with each other was near impossible. Still, it was evident that feelings were mutual. Seamus graduated 6 months ahead of me and moved on with life as a leader in training. Long story short, my mom passed away suddenly after my graduation. Seamus had met my mother, who was involved with TC as a volunteer, and felt led to attend the funeral and give his condolences to me. He was engaged at the time, but felt in his heart that he was supposed to take care of me for some reason. That relationship ended several months later, and we were reintroduced about a year after that. We may have been foolish, but we decided to get married a couple weeks after this reunion. And 3 weeks after that, we found out we were pregnant with our son, who is now almost 6. We were looking for a change when the market heated up in the Lower Mainland in 2016. Seamus' sister lives near 100 Mile, so we came for a weekend getaway visit. We loved it so much, we found work here and sold our home and settled in the Cariboo. Fast forward another year and we were pregnant with our daughter and I was homesick, so we moved again. But after another year, we decided we missed the Cariboo and our opportunities in Chilliwack seemed to be dwindling. We moved back in the summer of 2019 with no specific jobs, just some savings and a land development project to finish that we started in 2017. 2020 was a difficult year for everyone, but somehow we managed to incorporate 2 companies. We own a holdings company and a yard maintenance business that we built together. Seamus discovered his dream of becoming a realtor and will be moving into a great career as soon as he completes his exam. We would not be where we are today without a lot of hard work and the support of the TC program by any means. We are just 2 faces of this global recovery program. We can assure you the year-long residential program lives up to its name. It is a challenge, and we believe that is why it is so rewarding and so effective. In discussion with other graduates, we hear a common theme that their year in the program was probably the hardest year of their lives, but the best year ever. We believe that is because one must let go of everything as a sacrifice to pursue healing and hope. One must abstain from many things for a year and focus on what is most important to an addict: hope, future, healing, peace, forgiveness. There is so much confidence gained from accomplishing such a feat of surrendering and submitting to loving authority for an extended period of time in which you inevitably begin to open up and truly heal. There are many differences between a faith-based program such as TC and other programs. We noticed in our experiences that servanthood was a key focus in the TC program, whereas in many other programs and therapies, the focus is on self. Addiction is an extremely selfish disease, and so is depression. While the leaders of the program strongly maintain compassion and empathy, we believe they try to draw focus away from the past, trauma, and the me attitude. We think this is ultimately a highly effective strategy to healing, recovering, and creating a plan for one's future. It is common knowledge that in cases of mental illness and addiction, which is really a behavioral response to trauma and wounding, one must seek to see things from a new perspective and get out of that stuck place in their mind and thinking that keeps them struggling and regressing. In my experience with years of counseling and therapies, this seems to be the goal. Healing, acceptance, and forgiveness go hand in hand, in my opinion. As someone begins to accept the past and the present, healing initiates, and I believe that that person can begin to forgive themselves, others, and God. When this process continues, more acceptance becomes attainable and more healing forges. The beautiful thing about a commitment to TC is that self-control is learned and endurance forms as one gears up to the thought, hey, I can do this and I want to accomplish this. Graduating becomes a big deal and a breakthrough moment. The thought of such accomplishment is a thought that creates perseverance. I am not sure that a shorter program would have the same effect. I am reminded that it takes at least 21 days to form a new healthy habit, and I think of how many times 21 days pass over the course of a year. There is something truly extraordinary about a year in this protective bubble, as we have termed it. My husband used the analogy of a brace or a molding process. The program itself acts as a shield from the distractions and pressures of the world. It is a safe place filled with love, the love of leaders, teachers, and other students who become like brothers and sisters, and of course, God. The curriculum is truly life-giving. Each student knows what is expected. They can rest in the knowledge that they are supported in every way. The schedule teaches students skills they may have never learned, usually due to years of externally afflicted trauma, self-inflicted trauma, and rebellion. When someone lives in a constant state of a need for escape to function, they stop learning many things about life and severely lack coping skills. We could go on and on about the effectiveness of this amazing program and opportunity, but it truly must be experienced to understand its true benefit. We 100% believe that our lives would be a complete mess or even destroyed by now without the love and faith we received in this program. It took a community and a ton of grace to see us through to the lives we get to live now, and the ability to say we were rescued, delivered, and transformed by the second chance called Teen Challenge. We would be so honored to share more at any request and to be part of this life-changing opportunity being offered to the people of the Cariboo. Finally, we want to highlight that during our season in this program, each of us experienced the ignition of several dreams for our future. Dreams that gave us the purpose to carry on fighting this battle. The ability to dream again and the desire and confidence to believe we can effect change and help others must be a true sign of healing manifested and hope revealed. Again, I do not believe that without the guidance and nourishment of this program, that peace, value, and self-esteem would have succeeded, empowering us to dream. Seamus has dreams of establishing and leading more recovery homes. I dream of positively impacting the darkness of mental illness, bullying, trafficking, and sexual violence by sharing my story and founding a place of therapy and refuge for survivors. Again, we thank you for listening, and we thank you, TC leaders, for all that you do. Thanks.
All right, so the problem. So I know that it probably doesn't need to be said too much, but globally there is an addiction issue in this world. In Canada, there is an addiction issue in this world. There are some facts down here. Anybody who wants this presentation, I can always email it to you. I don't need to read through the whole thing at this time. But here in BC, especially with what's been going on this last year, this COVID has really magnified the addiction issue and the fact that people aren't reaching out for help, and the overdose rate has just skyrocketed. And not just overdose, because there are people who can overdose and get to a hospital in time or get to some kind of life-saving method, but they aren't. The death rates are astronomical in this last year. And so that is the problem. We need more treatment, whatever that looks like. We just need to have more available for people who want it. I know that there are people who are not going to know that they need it. Going out, it's going to be a lot of going out and finding people and offering hope to people. And so, yeah, when you're in the throes of addiction and you just think that you're in that cycle and there is no way out, there is no hope, that you need somebody in front of you to tell you, you know what, there is hope. And so, and we also need prayer. Like we have one of our pastors at our center, and he always asks each student that comes in, like, who is praying for you? Like, how did you end up here? Because more often than not, somebody who ends up in a Teen Challenge program has somebody praying for them into that program. And so we just need to be able to do that. So Teen Challenge, I am not sure if you are aware, but it was founded in 1958 by David Wilkerson. Anybody who has read The Cross and the Switchblade, I have some copies here if anybody wants one. And it is a fantastic book, just, about how it all began. How did this all start 60 plus years ago? And so we have Adult and Teen Challenge around the world has grown to more than 1,400 centers in 130 countries. And so it is the largest footprint of addiction recovery in the entire world. And so we have this benefit of being able to have not only this footprint, but we can say, this program works because we've seen it work, and it works in all different areas of the world. It's not just a Canada thing or a US thing. It's all over the world, and it works. And so the need is so great. We actually have about 30 countries that are asking for Teen Challenges to come into those countries. And so just like the process that we're going through here in the Cariboo, this same process goes on in all kinds of countries around the world. It's like, how do we start? Where do we begin? How do we get this going? And so those processes are going on all around the world. And so there are barriers. There's definitely barriers to support. You have the stigma of addiction. You have the safety, the mental health, the lack of Aboriginal support services. There's a whole list there of things that are just barriers to getting help. Within Teen Challenge, we want to make that barrier just as small as we possibly can. And so we don't want something like finances to stand in somebody's way. We know that when somebody makes that decision, like, I need help or I'm going to die, we want to get them into the program as soon as we possibly can. And so trying to make a whole bunch of hoops for somebody who's in addiction to jump through is counterproductive. And so we just want to make sure that we have that support available, that we have the beds available, that we have the program available for somebody who is ready and wanting to make that decision. My husband and I talk about it often. If you tell somebody our beds are full, call back on Monday, and then call back on Monday, and then call back on Monday. That doesn't work. That doesn't help somebody. And so there are people who might do that for a time, but we need to have those supports available right away when somebody is saying, I need help or I'm going to die. And so we have, there's the list there of supports. And we also, we did something called the logic model. And so basically, we have program inputs. And so basically how we run the program, what kind of things we need in the program. And then we have the activities. So what is it that goes on during the program? And so we have, awareness, we have setting goals, we have, Bible memorization, work skills, counseling and mentoring, celebrating as the client moves through the program, teaching on boundaries and healthy relationships, training on work and responsibility. And so we have all of these things that go into the program processes. And so basically, how all the process works. We receive an application, we interview a person, we work on, getting them their ID, getting them bank accounts. We work on getting them to a doctor and to a dentist. All of those things in due time within the program, but we definitely work on those things. We teach on how to handle money, managing time. Our entire program has high accountability, high standards. We standardize the core program. So within the Teen Challenge program, we actually have a set curriculum that every single Teen Challenge program around the entire world, you can walk into any single one of them, and for that first 6 months, they are teaching the exact same curriculum for the entire first 6 months. Now, we do have a second 6 months, which is called training phase, where we're kind of training for that transition out back into the world. That has a little bit more flexibility, but generally speaking, they all look the same for the second phase, which is called training phase. We work on things like communication with family. We work on interview skills and resume writing. And so these are the kinds of things, these are the processes that go into the program. And then we have the program outcome, family restoration, no more substance abuse. That is the goal, no more substance abuse, developing positive relationships, supporting network, improving life skills and literacy, medical and mental health issues are being addressed. Making restitution with people you've wronged, engaging in pro-social behavior. So a lot of what happens in the addiction world is very antisocial. Yes, there might be social aspects to addiction, but it's very antisocial in the way that it's not accepted in normal social circles. And so you have people who are doing things that they normally would not do because they are in this grip of addiction. And so we want to come back into this pro-social behavior, living in community, so interdependence on others. And so we don't want that person to be dependent on somebody for everything. We want, or are so independent that they don't need anyone. We want people to live in interdependence. And so those are the kinds of things that we teach. We teach awareness, people that are growing in maturity, integrity, keeping their word, being trustworthy, responsible, strong work ethic and vocational skills, all these things. So within the Teen Challenge program, we have what we call is work therapy. And so within the program, we have a portion of the program, about 6.5 hours, Monday to Friday. Doesn't look the same in every single center, but where the student in the program would be working and bringing finances into the program, as well as learning that work ethic, learning how to work hard and to feel accomplished by that work. And so those are the things that go into the program. And so the ultimate outcome is to have a successful graduate who is free from addiction and who are emotionally balanced, socially adjusted, spiritually alive, and physically well. And so that is our ultimate outcome of this program. And those pictures that you see there, they actually are people in the program now. So this one up at the top right-hand corner, that's our classroom in our Okanagan Center. The one on the left there is the Ford dealership in Abbotsford. The guys actually went out. I actually did one of the days too, went out and cleaned all the vehicles on the Ford lot, did all the washing and so then there's two gals there who are in the Abbotsford Women's Program. And then this bottom picture is actually when the guys got together. They both drove to a Soyuz. So the Okanagan Center and then the Chilliwack Center, they drove to a Soyuz and met for a beach day at a Soyuz. And so, you know what, these guys, it's so exciting to watch people having fun that doesn't include substances and just becoming alive in things that are just normal pro-social things that you do. You know, you go with your friends and have a beach day and nobody is drinking or doing drugs and they're having an amazing time. And so these are the kinds of things that we want to teach as well, is how to engage other people and again, be interdependent on other people in a pro-social way. And so the statistics. So I have the references for all these statistics. So the chance of living drug-free after a 30-day program is 4 to 8%. After a drug-free after a 12-month program is 40 to 60%. But if you actually add the 12-month Teen Challenge program in there, the studies show that you are, after 5 years, 70 to 85% chance of living free from addiction. Now, I'm not saying that it isn't a long road. After Teen Challenge, after the year, there is a long road. And I know that we've talked about, even for this area, of having a second year program. So we call it at Teen Challenge successful living. And so successful living can be from 6 months to a year and a half or longer after a person has completed that first year program. And so they can stay on with Teen Challenge and they can either work for Teen Challenge, they can volunteer for Teen Challenge, or they can live at Teen Challenge and work out in the community, go to school, do an apprenticeship, get some kind of trade, and they can live at the Teen Challenge facility. So we want to make sure that we have enough beds to make that possible. So in every facility, we want to make sure that we have enough beds for first years, so first year students that are in that initial 12-month program, and then also where we can care for and help people who have graduated. So we want to make sure that we have enough beds for that as well. So we have I have references for all of these studies if anybody wants to see that. So overall, the research studies, a high abstinence of substance use, high rates of employment and pursuing other further education, and a high community engagement. So these just point out the different studies that have happened that get us to that 70 to 85%. And so actually at the Abbotsford Women's Center, they did a study for everybody over the last 7 years that has graduated, and they came up with 84% of the people who had gone through the program that were living, actively a life that is addiction free. And so I'm just going to go a little bit into finances if anybody is wondering. So the cost at Adult and Teen Challenge is about $3,500 to $4,000 per month per student. And so obviously the smaller your center, the higher that number is. Okay, so the more beds you have, the lower that number becomes. So basically within the budget, we look to see about 30% is donations. And so that's mail-in donations, student sponsorship, monthly church support. So this is money that comes in from people who just believe in Teen Challenge and they want to see it succeed. And so we do newsletters throughout the year. And people just mail in donations. Like there's so many faithful people who just continue to support. We have a monthly sponsorship program where you can get a student who you then can communicate with, and the student sends you a monthly update of how they're doing in the program, and it's just such a great way to engage in the program. We have monthly church support, so we really do count on churches to put us in their mission budget. So we are a parachurch ministry, and so we are that ministry after somebody's tithe. So they're tithing to their church, they're tithing to their local church, and then we are that extra. So we are hoping that churches will put us in that mission budget. And so whether that be monthly, quarterly, or yearly, some kind of gift to Teen Challenge. And so we're super grateful. And even through 2020, when I wasn't sure what was going to happen with missions giving from churches, and I did not have one church back out on us for missions giving over 2020. And it was amazing how faithful all those churches were in the Okanagan and in the Lower Mainland. It was truly, truly amazing. The second part of our budget is enterprise, we call it. So we have work therapy, which I've talked about. We have vehicle donations, we have wood sales, we have garden sales. And so basically what we're wanting to do is create income generation with the students that are in the program. So their hands in the soil. If we decide to do any kind of gardening work, or if there's wood that we can produce into firewood or those kinds of things. Vehicle donations is one that works really well in high populated areas where people donate their vehicles to us for scrap. And so we end up getting that money. And then work therapy is jobs within the community that also brings money into the program and teaches skills at the same time. So the enterprise is, dual effect. We want to bring finances in, but we also want it to be teaching the student how to work and take responsibility. The next is housing. So some of our centers are, we have the students who come in the program, their room and board is covered by what they call is per diem. So it's actually covered by poverty reduction. And so it would be, some people would call it welfare, whatever you want to call it. The students' room and board, so to speak, is covered by the government. And then we have an intake fee. We have a one-time intake fee from the student of $1,000. And again, if somebody cannot pay that, we want the barrier, right? Really, really low. And so if somebody cannot pay that, we absolutely would not want finances to be a reason someone couldn't come in. And then there are some people who wouldn't qualify for housing support from the government, and they would pay room and board. And so that's about 25% of the budget. And then we have fundraising. And so we have peer-to-peer fundraising, we have banquets, we have walkathons, we have golf tournaments, etc. Whatever that looks like in fundraising. We had done an event in the Okanagan called Sled for Eternity. And so you basically register to sled on the day that we choose. And then you go to your friends and your family and whoever else and you fundraise. And the ultimate prize for the top fundraiser was a brand new sled that they could win. And so we try to do events like that where, you're doing that peer-to-peer fundraising. People are hearing about Teen Challenge. People are getting excited and donating to your cause, which is we have a walkathon happening as well this coming year. And so people are raising $1 per kilometer or whatever that looks like, maybe a flat donation. And so whatever that looks like in this community, those kinds of things have to be sort of worked out. And so that is basically the Teen Challenge program, what we want to do in this area. The first steps is, finding that support, having people say, you know what, we really want you here. We want to make sure that this is available in this area. So we would probably want to put together some kind of, committee, kind of an overseeing committee of how we would sort of walk the steps out, how to start this. Facilities. We are, there's possibility of that there's a piece of land, but we need facilities on that piece of land. And so how does that look like? How do we get started with those things? And then staffing, like how do we find staff in the area and what does that look like? And so so we're just going to kind of we want to step in pace with what God wants us to do. But we also know that there are people who are dying while we're sitting here talking about this. And so we just want so desperately to begin this process of helping. And so, this was the presentation that I have. The appendix here is all the references of the things that I claim. And so if anybody wants to read those, they can. But I just wanted to actually take questions. And so there might be something that I have overlooked or that I have forgotten to mention. And so I know we've had some discussion over dinner, but does anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask? Yes?
You were talking about the volunteer opportunities. Maybe
Yes.
that would be something.
Okay, so within the Teen Challenge structure, there are volunteer opportunities for people who are in churches who want to get involved and help, who have a heart for people in addiction. And so we have a volunteer application that a person would fill out. We obviously have a statement of faith. We have kind of a lifestyle code kind of thing that a person would fill out as well. And so we have things like making meals for the students. We have things like driving them to appointments. There is all kinds of different appointments that happen within the program, or just mentoring. We call it mentoring or befriending a student and just letting them know that you're there for them to talk to, whether it's once a week or once every other week. And so there are definitely opportunities. Also driving the students to and from work. That's always a need where if you don't have the staff, you need to bulk it up with volunteer drivers. And so, driving is actually a big one. And so we always welcome volunteers.
What's your capacity in BC? How many beds do you have? And are you short of beds?
You know what? It's 2020 coming into 2021 because of what's going on with COVID. We are not short of beds right now. We would love to take referrals if anybody knows of anybody who is struggling. We have beds available in the men's center right now in Lake Country, in the Okanagan, or in Chilliwack. So in Okanagan, we have 22 beds for first-year students, and then we have about 8 beds for second years. So we actually have quite a lot of beds in the Okanagan. And then in Chilliwack, we have about 14 beds for first year students, and then 4 for graduates. Well, we have a few more because we actually have a staff house as well in Chilliwack that's like a separate facility where staff can live. So yeah, we have right now, because it's so hard for people with the isolation to reach out and to get the help they need, we unfortunately haven't been at capacity for this last year. And so when we're going around and we are in churches every week and we're out in the community, I'll have a team that will go out and give out, hot chocolate and on the streets on one evening and things like that. Kind of doing that outreach piece. It's much easier to find those people, but when you can't do any of that outreach that you would normally do, it has been a struggle for sure. The Women's Center, so right now the Abbotsford Women's Center has 7 beds for first year students and 2 beds for graduates, but they are actually quadrupling that. We have actually bought a new facility new to us. It wasn't brand new, but new to us in Surrey. So the women will be moving, the first year students will be moving to Surrey. There will be 16 first year beds. There will be, in that facility, there will be 3 second year student beds. And then we're keeping the Abbotsford Center for second stage housing. So we're actually going to have 9 or 8 beds that will be actually second stage housing for women who have graduated the program and who want to stay on. So with the Women's Center, we're going up to 30. So so I guess that's tripling.
So how do you start? Where do you begin with all of that?
Well, how I began up here was actually a call from John first, and then I got a call from Kathy. And so it's basically people who are like, we need something out here. We really want to have something in this area. And so really, it depends on how you want to start. So some areas will start with a community office. So you'll open up an office and you'll offer classes. So we offer classes called Living Free. And those classes are either for the family members of addicted people or people who are struggling in addiction themselves but don't want to go into a year-long treatment program. And so what we'll do is offer those classes weekly from that community office. We'll offer counseling. We're going to offer, prayer. We're going to offer referrals to the residential programs. And so sometimes a community will start that way with a community office, and then you kind of build momentum. You build the supporters through that, and then you're basically looking, okay, so is there some kind of facility that becomes available? Is there an old nursing home? Is there an old, something that's, a school or, whatever that looks like? You have people in that community who have their ear to the ground and who are looking and just keeping a watch for that.
Because once it gets started, you're not going to have a lack of filling the spaces.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so what I would do also is if, let's say we had a women's center starting, I would send staff here for that women's center for training purposes. So whether it be a graduate of the program who is in training, or one of our full staff members, or maybe myself. I don't know what that will look like, but basically I would look for staff in the area and then send people who can help train. And then they could stay or they would go back, right? And then they would leave the trained staff. So it just becomes like a step-by-step kind of process. And so, however we start that, maybe it is with a community. Maybe we are going to start with a community office first, and then build momentum from there. Or maybe we have a facility or we have land or something happens where we have a funder where we can go straight into, okay, here's the residence and let's get going. And so whatever sacrifice we have to do to make that so, whatever we have to do to serve, to get that going, that is what we will do. And so I hope that answered your question.
Has Teen Challenge ever thought about doing detox centers?
We haven't, not that I wouldn't, but right now, with it being a medical facility, it would be very government run, right? So at this point, it wouldn't necessarily, like I know in Minneapolis, for example, they have a huge one and they take a ton of government funding. Like we take per diem, so the students' room and board is covered from welfare, right? So we're not actually government funded, but a detox facility most likely would have to be, because there's just a lot of expenses that go along with that. And so we haven't done that yet. Not that I'm opposed to it, but I definitely, there would be a lot more involved in that, because you'd actually have to be like a medical facility, right?
Numbers too, like looking at your success numbers. I don't know how long a detox generally is. I guess it's
Detox is usually a week to 2
It's a
weeks.
preemptive thing to recovery. You generally, like Teen Challenge still requires a period of time detox.
before you
Is that right?
It depends on what someone's on.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't always require detox. We do have people, like if they need 3 or 4 days to kind of like get themselves together and, drink water and sleep and have a few meals, we'll allow them to do that in our facility, as long as it's not medically necessary for them to be in a detox. But there are some drugs and alcohol, actually, that if you're coming off of severe alcoholism, you need medical attention. Like you can't just stop doing that. And so yeah, there are times where we will require detox. And generally, though, the person themselves knows what they require, that they require a detox, because they're not going to make it if they don't. But there are some drugs where it is like it's just a physical thing where you could stop taking it. And of course, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be in pain. But I've seen people just, sweat it out and stop, right? And so, yeah, it just depends. Like, again, the barrier, we want that barrier really, really low.
So at what point do you make a decision whether it's going to be a men's center or a women's center, or, this must have been a mixed center over here.
We don't have mixed centers, but it is.
There's some teepee creeping going on over there.
Yeah. It is advantageous to have a men's and a women's facility close together. Not like on the same property or anything like that, generally speaking. However, there is some precedent for that. Let's say in Florida, for example, I've been to their Teen Challenge in Southeast Florida, and they own an entire city block. And so they have all their men's and women's facilities in a city block. And so they're very close together. I'm not sure how they manage all of that, but they are very close together. And so, like, for example, with Abbotsford and Chilliwack, you got, 2 centers that are 25 minutes apart. And so they can go to churches together. They can, do outreaches together and
never on the same property.
yeah, so never on the same, generally speaking, not on the same.
Analyze which would be the starting point for Londo.
I think that it would be, I think for me, it would be more of a staffing thing, whether you can get women's staff or men's staff, as well as a work thing. So if we can find a bunch of, say we have a bunch of people who present themselves and say, okay, I'll hire some students, but it's male, it's work for men, then we might go that way. Or if we can find work for women, then we might go that way. My hope is that we could do both. That would be the ultimate goal.
So when you say work for men, work for women, so when does the work start? Right from the beginning, that they are to be out working at some level?
We generally have about 6 weeks where the student doesn't go anywhere. They stay on site for that 6 weeks. We call that admissions phase. So that would be generally the goal, is that the first 6 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We call it lockdown as well. In the bubble. We like the bubble. And so, yeah, it would be the first 6 weeks, and then after that, then the students would. Now, it is work that we find, and it would be work that is protected. So it's work that is doable. It's not too skilled, but they're also learning skills at the same time. And it would be with employers who understand what that person is going through. It could be volunteer work, but the goal of it is to bring finances into the program. Yeah.
So, I was gonna add into your question, and I forgot what it was. Oh, you said, whether it would be men or a women's center, depending on, the staffing. So is it only men working with men, women working with women, or do you have?
It would only be women working with women. As for the men's center, I have been a director of a men's center, and I made it work because I had staff under me that would work directly with the students. So I was the center director, and so I had pastors and counselors and phase managers and people.
As well?
They were all men.
So they have to be all men?
Yeah.
So if there's a men's center here, there would be no women volunteers in the center?
I do allow, like possibly kitchen volunteers, people who come in and make meals. I would not allow a woman to be driving a man around to appointments and stuff like that. There would just be some structure around that. But I do have women who come into the men's center, but usually a lot of times it's couples who come and who will make, like I had a couple in last night at the Okanagan Center making the meal, making the supper for the guys. And so, and then we try to have chapel once a week as well for the community. And so, like a lot of times, couples or even women, like we have a couple of women who come to chapel every week and who bring cookies and, just socialize with the guys. And they're, older women, more mature women who can handle that kind of thing. And I generally, there's just a lot of, guarded things around that we try to put in place. Yeah. Define older. I'm not defining older, but I'm going to say mature, more mature in, mature women who aren't there for, aren't there for certain reasons. So, no, none of them. No, none of them. Yeah. So, I'm not trying to be like gender exclusive, but it just makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense because there's just a lot of things that go along with recovery and trauma, right? And so, lots of vulnerability and pain often finds the other people in pain, right? And so, I've seen things go sideways. Yes.
Well,
So.
it's sidetracks.
Yeah.
You're from your recovery.
Yeah.
Period. If you might have that little eye for that counselor girl or whatever, right? Even a little older, you got to be very guarded because we're in our we're just pure raw.
Yeah.
In that 1 year, for the most part, we're raw,
Yeah.
and we can fall for the craziest things.
Oh, I know. And even the guys that go out to volunteer, like at let's say the food bank or something, if there are people there that are a distraction, I've seen that too, where they develop relationships in that way, and it does sidetrack. Like I've seen people leave the program because of that. And so you find somebody who's willing to let you come live with them because you seem really good. Like you seem like you're super healthy and you're doing this program and, and so, we like to keep things protected and the bubble. We like the bubble.
So once you're there, like, if you wanna walk away, you can walk away.
You can walk away. The doors are open. Yep.
You try to put the facility far enough away, it's a long walk.
It's a long walk, yes.
You got lots of time to think about it.
Yeah. And the only place we're driving you is the bus station. So, yeah, it is an open door policy. So we have parents who call us and like, can you lock our kid up? And it's like, when I say kid, I mean 19 and above. But and no, we cannot lock anybody up, and we don't want to lock anybody up. So, we had a student actually 2 weeks ago say, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to do this on my own. He actually broke into one of our offices and took stuff and then left the next day. And we saw it on the cameras after he had left. It wasn't a huge deal, but you know what, he called in a few days. This is the thing about, people in somebody's life who is in recovery. So, nobody would take him in, right? So he walked away from Teen Challenge, and his family's like, nope, you know what? We had a place for you, and if you don't want to be there, then you're on your own. And he called back in a few days and said, I don't want to be on my own. Can I come back? And I said to the intake person, I'm like, get him back here. Like, get him back here. If God is calling him here, he needs to be here. And so yeah, I believe he came back in the program actually today. And so it is like Teen Challenge is a place of just forgiveness and restoration and messing up, and then more forgiveness, and a place where you can work out all those things inside of you. Like we have students who will sit in with their phase manager, and you know what, the first month they're pacing the room and they're yelling and screaming and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know what, by month 11 or 12, it's like you're able to sit and have a conversation and actually converse with that person. And that person has grown so much. There was, one guy who wrote in his one of his class assignments, he wrote in there, and he's like, I have grown up more in the last 6 months than I did in the previous 6 years. And one of the staff members had read that in his work, and so he kind of sent just that little snippet and said, like, look, and that is it. That is the life transformation that is happening within the center. It's like day by day, that heart is turning from stone to flesh, right? And so that is the life transformation. But guess what? That guy, you know what? The next day, it's like he's having a bad day again. And and so it is that walking with that person with grace and compassion and just wanting to help them see. And it's not doing it for them because we want them to take responsibility for their own life, but it's helping them see where the errors are. Where's your error in thinking? Where's your error in what you're doing, in your plan, and why, and all of those things. And so, so like there's a lot of programs out there that if you do something against the rules, you're out, you're gone, and that's it.
Sunday.
What's that?
On my first Sunday in the program, I left.
Oh, did you?
4 days.
Yeah.
They had me back in and I graduated. So
Yeah, it happens. It
it's
definitely
never-
happens.
It's almost never a smooth ride.
No.
I don't know really anybody that went through the program and it was a smooth ride. There's
Yeah.
ups, there's downs. If you can make it the first 6 weeks, generally they stick around. But
Yep. Yeah.
It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, it is definitely a challenge. What were you gonna?
Oh, I did an extra month actually because I left. I
Oh.
walked off the property, and
Yeah.
I had an option. You can leave, or if you want to come back and continue. I think I was in my 10th month, and I had an argument with somebody, and I got really mad, and just was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I came back like, okay, well, here's your options. You can leave, or you can stay and do an extra month. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
guess I'm staying.
And that's the submission. Like that's the actual submitting to authority, to the process. And so that's where Teen Challenge is so for you, that they want you to succeed. And it's like we all make mistakes and we all do things that in the heat of the moment or whatever that looks like. And so we always want to be offering that grace and that. So what we would, that would be a situation where there was obviously consequences to those actions, but those consequences are in the most loving way to that person's benefit.
That's a
Right?
good way to explain it.
Yeah.
You get discipline at Teen Challenge, it doesn't seem like discipline. It always comes from a place of love.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Changed.
yeah.
What is the minimum age, and then with Teen Challenge / Adult Challenge, do they run out of the same facility, or how does that work?
You know what? In Canada, we don't have any adolescent facilities. So Teen Challenge is the name it was given 60 years ago. And so we want to stick with our roots. And so that's why we added the adult and Teen Challenge. And so here in Canada, we do 19 and above. So right now, we actually, in one of our programs, we actually have a 66-year-old in the program. So there's a whole range of ages.
It's the same program
Yep, same program for everybody.
for everybody.
Yep. Trying to get the 66-year-old to submit the same way the 19-year-old. It is fun, but
Could be even harder than living that long.
oh, it's way harder. It's way harder. Yeah, I find that the late 20s, early 30s, they find it the easiest. So when you're early in your 20s, you have a lot of rounds left in you, you think, right? So you think like, I can do this on my own. I got more rounds in me. I'm here to get kind of dried out or whatever. And then when you get to the 60, 65 age, that's hard because you have people who are half your age telling you what to do. So that's a tough one. But yeah. But we welcome all. We want everyone. So yeah. Anyways, I don't know if there's any other questions. I think that's all I have for the.
So now what?
Now what?
Now what? Like, so,
Well,
Together.
I have some just information for people to take with them with my business card. If you have any thoughts or feelings or things to contribute, even if it's not necessarily monetary, but like if there are people you know or buildings you know of, or all of those things, just kind of like brainstorming of what that looks like. And then, contacting myself or Kathy. Kathy has been sort of my go-to person in this area. She's really been, the one kind of pushing this rock uphill. And so she's pushing. And so the next steps would be to sort of, build that,
Get it out there more.
yeah, build an advisory committee. So we have a board that is in the Lower Mainland and in the Okanagan. We have like a board of directors. I am looking actually for more board members. If you know of anybody who you think would be a good fit to sit on the board of directors, I would like, now with technology, it's not like we have to be together in the same room. It's, it's not a huge commitment to sit on a board because you can do things virtually. But so it'd basically be put together an advisory board. So we would call this wouldn't be like a board of directors. This would be an advisory board for this area specifically. And then just kind of keeping our ear to the ground and seeing kind of what comes up. And I believe that the doors will open. Like that's kind of how it works, is that in my experience, you don't want to shove like through anywhere. You don't want to shove the doors open. You want to walk through the doors that open. So that's kind of our next step. So I can give you information about myself. I have some pamphlets about how to give, as well as how to get in the program. So you know what, there's two things here, right? Like we want people to get help as well. So if you have people in this area who need help now, we want to provide that as well, right? So I have that information for people to take with them. And I also brought Crest and the Switchblade books if anybody wants to take one of those as well and refresh their memory on that book.
A quick thought. Just an idea. My husband came across this, I just showed Kathy. There's a lodge for sale in Likely. And it's a beautiful place. It's got like a pub, which could be changed into maybe a chapel or something. It's got, it's a motel, so.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful, it's right up on, just so you guys know, it's up on the hill in Likely, when you come in and then you hit the bridge, you keep going up, and then up on your left-hand side, that big old, that's the one.
Yeah. I
So-
don't remember what it was for.
And how far is Likely from here?
I don't know.
It's out in the middle of, nobody would leave.
Let's find out.
It's about
Yeah.
an hour, yeah.
It's about an hour, yeah. So
Might be too far, but.
yeah, so
one of
those
ideas.
yeah.
A friend of mine has a school for sale that they renovated.
Oh, okay.
That's Buffalo Creek
Buffalo
and Hunter
Creek
Mountain.
School. And,
Yeah.
they put,
Hour and a half,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just to keep driving people, going out to drive people back into work.
So
Yeah.
wi- so is
Way out.
like,
It would never happen.
is
You need a
Williams Lake
helicopter.
the hub for this area? Like,
Oh, cool.
would it have the courts and would it have the like the doctors and the all, like, you got to think about driving people to appointments, and like it is actually the one nice thing about this whole thing that's happened with COVID is that so many more things are virtual now, and so you can actually do a lot more things virtually, which is nice in a sense. And so yeah, we would just want to make sure that we're pursuing things that, like, you always kind of want to be in sort of a hub so that you're not. We actually had a center in Duncan on the island, and it was just too far from anything major. You're just spending so much in gas, and you can't find jobs, and like there's all those kinds of things. And so yeah, you want to make sure that you're not in certain areas where a person would be in danger. But you also want to make sure you're close enough that it makes sense to be close to the hub of what's going on.
Be right in town though, I guess.
No,
Really.
not
Obviously
necessarily.
it works in Florida, but
It does
Yeah.
work in a lot of centers, like I know lots of centers, like Chilliwack is right in, it's not in Chilliwack, it's in Yarrow, which is now called Chilliwack, but.
Yeah, it is.
anyway,
Yeah,
It's in the little community of Yarrow, and they're right in town. right?
yeah,
that's right.
You know,
That's
there was
right.
lots of
Yeah.
adversity with people and blah, 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 because that's one of the centers that I was first at.
Well, and yeah, Chilliwack is actually, you are like a 3-minute walk to four different liquor stores. Like,
Yeah.
you are, and so it can be done. Like, you can be in the center in one of our centers in central Canada. You're right in the thick of low income housing and downtown. And there was one guy who actually left the program because he said, now this is just an excuse, but he said as he's walking to the YMCA, he's passing by his dealer. And so it was one of those things where he said, no, I'm out of here. Now, he did end up coming back, and he ended up going to Thunder Bay and graduating, and he's now a staff. And so, there are those success stories, but it does play with your head a bit, right? When you're in those areas. So you want it to be, kind of remote, but not too remote. Yeah.
Like McLeish Lake would be perfect. Just saying.
What's that?
At McLeish Lake. that's
McLeish
where
Lake.
A few of us live.
Okay. Yeah.
It's McLeish Lake is right in the middle of Williams Lake and Quinnell, which is
What do
two
they
hubs.
do, what do they do with the school out there, John?
Oh,
We've
it's
already
still
phoned
there.
about the school, so it's going up for auction, and they're gonna notify me when it does. I already told them Teen Challenge could be looking for something.
It's gotta be
Took
cheap,
advantage of it.
because it needs a new roof immediately, and
Yeah,
it's full of
beautiful,
mold.
it's
and-
perfect.
Quite often they give those schools away.
Yeah,
can get
yeah,
the
we could
phone stuff.
possibly get that for free, cause there's
Yeah,
probably $250,000 worth of damage.
that's it. Just kind of
Probably.
us, yeah.
Well, construction is things that, like, we can do that with, bringing teams out from the centers and stuff like that. And so there are options where it could be, a less expensive fix for things that need to be done. I know there's lots of teen challenges. Well, if the borders open up, who are looking for missions trips and things like that, right? So there's always those options too to call.
Basement at the E3 there.
You know what though? That sounds funny, but Thunder Bay. I know Thunder Bay. Has now a thrift store and a women's center and a men's center, and they started in like a little section of an upstairs of a church, like 10 years ago. That's where they started, and so there is potential for those kinds of things. Now, if we can get a facility license, if you go over 10 in a facility, there's more licenses for having an industrial kitchen and all those things. But if you stay 10 and under, there's a lot more freedom within that in your facility. And so yeah,
10's a good number to start.
it is. It's a definitely good number.
It's a great number,
10
right?
for women and a 10 for men.
Exactly. Yep. 10 for women, 10 for men. Yep. And so yeah, if you stay 10 and under, there's a lot less red tape. We all know about the red tape.
That's an important thing to know, right? That's a very, for now, why would you get a 30 men's? Well, who cares?
Yeah.
But under 10, yeah, it's doable.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
we just got to get that advisory board together and see who's sitting on that and get things going. It just you got to put one foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
or it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. So you guys know Kathy, so you're welcome to contact her. My information, I have business cards out just on the table over there, so you're welcome to contact me as well. If you think of yourself for it or you think of somebody else, you just drop us a line and we'll just start from there. And we'll just start by meeting. Like I have become very proficient in Zoom meetings, although it's not the funnest thing in the world, but, start some Zoom meetings and just talking this out and even praying together and having just a time where, everything that happens, prayer is going to go before it. And so even just getting together and praying, right? So it is the key. So yeah, so that is, anybody else have any other questions before I close out the evening? I know people need to probably get going, but. Hours ago, yeah. All right, so I'm just going to pray us out here and then we can get going. So Father God, we just thank you so much for this evening where we can come together, like-minded people who just want to see your kingdom come and your will be done. And so God, we just ask that your will be done in this area. Father, we just ask that you would open the doors that no man can open. So we know, Father, that you are the one opening them. And God, we just ask that you shut the doors so we know which doors not to walk through. And so we just want to be in step with what you're doing. We just want to be in step with your will. And so, God, we just ask that you be with every person who's here tonight and just speak to them, speak to their heart about how they want to get involved. I just bless each person that's here, that they've come and given up of their evening to be here. God, I just pray for Kaylee and Seamus as they're raising a young family and they're in, going into entrepreneurial and business world and everything that they're doing, God, that they're stepping out and wanting to, make an impact for the kingdom at the same time. And so, God, I just thank you for them and their willingness to share tonight and just bless them and be with them as they go. And be with Kathy as she continues to sort of lead this charge in this area. And thank you for her faithfulness and her love for this community and the people who are just perishing in this community. And so, God, we know that every person who doesn't know you is perishing. And so, God, our goal is for people to meet you, Jesus. We don't just want healthier people. We want people who are going to meet you, Jesus, and encounter you and go on to also be kingdom builders. And so, God, we just love you. We commit this evening to you. Everything that was said here, everything that was done here. God, I just pray that there would be complete understanding, that there would be no misunderstanding of anything that was said, that there would be no offense, that there would be nothing taken out of context, that everybody would just walk away from here just being delighted in your restoration power. So God, we just love you and we thank you and we commit this evening to you. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.